Hello, Abigail here with the astrology and the tarot energy reading for the full moon in Capricorn. This full moon is on the 10th of July at 4:39 a.m. EST, and it is at 18 degrees of Capricorn. As we know, the sun is then in Cancer during a full moon. And this one is interesting because by degree, it's only not by degree, by aspect, it's only pulling in Mars and the South Node in a trine, and then that sextile to the North Node. But then its ruler is kind of pulling almost everyone else in. It's pulling in Venus, it's pulling in Uranus and Neptune and Pluto. And so on the surface, it's almost like we're dealing with one thing, but then the undercurrents are all these big, massive cyclical issues and releases that need to happen. It does feel like this might be the breaking of a dam for a lot of us. It also feels kind of like an energetic release for the Uranus ingress into Gemini, which will, of course, go back into Taurus for a little bit in 2025. And I think it's April 2026 when it'll be officially in Gemini for the next 7 or so years. So, yeah, it feels this very much is an energy release. This very much is a release of frustration and entanglements and patterns and cycles. So we have the moon in Capricorn, trine the nodes, which are not the nodes, but the node, the south node, which is at 18 degrees, so an exact trine. And then at 15 degrees in Virgo, we have Mars. So the trine is helpful. It's going to be great for problem solving. However, whenever Mars and the south node meet, there is kind of a desire and resistance to change. It's this kind of oppositional force. It's not that the South Node doesn't want to change, but the South Node holds many things that have not changed. And so when Mars gets in there, there's a lot of restriction, not intentional. It's almost like a kitten getting into like a room full of yarn. The kitten wants to have fun and play and, accomplish something like destroying the yarn. And the yarn is just like, this is not meant for me. And then we get an entanglement and have to, save the kitten. So it can get really confusing when we have Mars, and it's not quite to its conjunction yet. When we have Mars interacting with the South Node, if you meet someone with Mars conjunct the South Node, they often have issues and struggles with kind of knowing how to move forward and move through fears and restrictions or breaking patterns. And it's not their fault. They just have to learn a skill set to work through this unique block of kind of shifting through and changing dynamics. Also, people with Mars conjunct the South Node are often required in a very heavy-handed way to break cycles in their families. And these are not cycles that they feel ready to break, but they are required to. So it's difficult when you find this in a person. It's hard for them. It's hard for the people around them. And it's hard when you meet it in a moon. But with the trine, this Saturn Capricorn moment is here to give us solutions and options. And also, I think sometimes the answer to a South Node Mars conjunction isn't to fix it, it's to release it and to let some things go, to clear some space. So, this full moon is a release of past life karmic issues. It's a release of frustrations around them. If you're like, Abigail, I don't know if I have past life issues. Well, everyone does. But if you think you're kind of stuck in a karmic loop, meeting doppelgangers of like the same archetype of person, constantly the same situation, same dynamics, experiencing the same relational trauma, or just people letting you down in the exact same way, or losing people in the exact same way. It's also kind of like having jobs always work a certain way because karma is about relationships, but relationships can be of all different kinds of dynamics, like work, colleagues, lovers, friends, partners, parents, family. So I think some of us are going to be called to walk away from some dynamics. This might also include leaving people, which, considering Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 18th, feels kind of on brand. Also, the ruler is pulling in all of the major planets. So Neptune is conjunct Saturn. Saturn is sextile Uranus. It is also sextile Pluto. And so on, kind of on the surface level, we're dealing with this release of past life stuff, and then all of this undercurrents is going to be sweeping under, that's bringing in like, the weight of all of your past lives and ancestral trauma and the new fresh energy of that Gemini, Gemini Uranus shift. So just know that it's a lot. I encourage you to take space. I think the moon itself is going to feel tough. It is going to feel a little stuck, but I think on the other side, a lot of stuff is going to start to feel right again, which I think we all could use. So I think that is something to look forward to. I think the moon itself is going to feel entangled and bound and kind of stuck, and the cards kind of speak to this. I'm looking at them right now. Um, but on the other side, I think the releases and the untangling that you do are going to set you up for some really great stuff. I also think it's going to clear the way for any manifestations that you made on that new moon in Cancer a couple weeks ago. So this is a really hopeful moment. It's a place where I think our seeds are going to appreciate. It feels like we're kind of pulling weeds out of the garden plot and allowing our little seeds to have some sunlight and some air. Like I said, I don't think it's going to feel easy, but I think there's a lot of magic to work with releasing trauma cycles. And I want to be clear, like you can never get rid of trauma, but you can get yourself out of the loop that you can get stuck in when trauma kind of takes over instead of, being able to kind of live and move through life healthily. But yeah, also I always encourage everyone to do this. Go check where this is happening in your chart. It'll give you an idea of the themes. This one isn't really hitting anything directly, but it's kind of adjacent to a lot of stuff in my chart. A lot of planets on the edges of trines and squares here. So also, if you have that Neptune Uranus conjunction, tight end of the 80s, the first few years of the 90s, that's going to be getting kicked off by this. So keep that in mind. A lot of unexpected things are going to be happening. And I think they're going to blindside us at first, and then we're going to learn to work with them. But let's get into the cards. As always, please like and subscribe before I get into the cards. Comment. You can ask me any questions you have. You can find me in multiple other places. I just always forget to say this in the middle, where people might actually pay attention to it. So please like and subscribe. Also, if you have any questions about anything I've said, you can always ask me. I'm very happy to answer, general questions. But moving into this, the reason why I think it's going to feel a bit sticky, besides that South Node trine, is we do have an 8 of Swords, and this feels really appropriate. It feels like we're trapped in something we're not quite able to see. And technically, maybe we could slide out of these bonds, but it really feels oppressive and like we're not getting anywhere. I do think a lot of us are going to kind of hit a bit of a low, unfortunately, during this full moon, but know that that low is kind of the downswing to an upswing. And also, fun fact, the next moon we experience is a Leo new moon that has a lot of really spicy, progressive energy. Really, opposed Pluto. It's going to feel really deep and dark, but also there's a lot of activation that's going to help us find our way through that. So this is also us, just a reminder of where we are in the astrology. Also, Mercury retrograde can make us feel this way too, and that's coming up on the 18th, like I said. So just be okay and aware that you might feel a bit entangled and entrapped and having to deal with all these South Node things. Not quite understanding how to get things to move and shift in a way that you need them to. My nodes are in conjunct. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to have any nodal lessons, but it means that there's a little bit of a disconnect. I might have to thread a needle through some pretty interesting leaps and bounds. But the very next card, which I find really lovely, is a 10 of Pentacles. I think there's a lot of really good stuff in this moon. I think it's just going to happen afterwards. And it feels like there's something to harvest and to appreciate and to celebrate. It feels like our ability to release some of these things are going to unlock some treasures that have kind of been lying dormant and waiting for us to kind of drop whatever's in that hand so that we can pick those up. I think also if you were able to release some of these cords and these connections and these, kind of confusions and tricky little things that, that South Node is bringing in, I think you're going to find a lot of abundance and a lot of magic on the other side. So I do think moving through, especially with that sun, on the very next day on Friday, the sun trines the North Node. So there's tons of progression coming immediately after this moon. So if we're feeling down and trapped, just know that we have 10 of Pentacles coming. And 10 of Pentacles can show up in a lot of different ways. It can be, a windfall. It can be community connection. It can be dreams coming true on a really material level. It can be us seeing the progression of our manifestations. So keep your eye out and celebrate. Something I always remind people is to make sure that you celebrate those moments when they happen, when you get the thing you've wanted. Don't just be like, okay, on to the next step to get that thing. Really affirm to the universe that that's what you want. And then we have two that I think are kind of similar in vibe that I'm going to kind of pull up at the same time. Ace of Swords, Knight of Swords. There's something happening mentally. I think a lot of progression for a lot of people. A lot of things are being unlocked in this time. A lot of new ideas, a lot of forward motion, a lot of shifting of minds and beliefs. And I think it's important to remember that in the world as it is, not everything is hopeless and things are changing. They're just sometimes as imperceptible as the breeze. And we really have to believe and stay true to the things that we care about and to pursue them and to constantly be looking for new thoughts and ideas, to be refreshing our mind. We're never going to arrive at complete understanding of anything. We're never going to suddenly know. And a lot of us have a lot of deprogramming and decolonizing to do. If you were my specific skin tint, a lot of us have a lot of stuff to unlearn, and we have a lot of behaviors to change. And these swords are reminding us that Uranus and Gemini is a great energy to really help us do these things. And if you don't struggle with the stuff that I struggle with because of my race and my bigoted upbringing, there are wonderful ideas and really rich pools of information and knowledge around today. And I encourage you to find them and also pursue them passionately and pursue them recklessly. Sometimes we're a bit too careful in the pursuit of a different idea. We're afraid of being wrong. It's okay to be wrong. Someone will tell you and you will adjust that behavior. The only thing that's wrong with being wrong is when you continue to be wrong and hurt people. So know that you can change and trailblaze and liberate yourself and your community in a beautiful, cohesive, lovely, chaotic. I know I'm using conflicting words, but it's very Uranian and very Gemini. Um, you can do all of those things and be true to yourself and be true to your purpose. I also think a lot of us need to kind of ground into a purpose, and we don't have to have a purpose that lasts a lifetime, but just an ethos that connects you, things that you know for certain are a truth, like human rights. They are a truth. You don't have to argue them. People deserve food, water, housing. Um, they deserve to eat and be happy and safe. That's a truth you can always believe in. Um, how we go about that, people have differing opinions, but the root of that is true. A spiritual belief that I have that I think is probably going to be pretty cohesive and coherent for the rest of my life is I believe that anyone um, can be psychic and use psychic gifts. Some of us just have to take a different path to get there. It's not always an open door. But yeah, I think a really important thing right now is to find that spark, that blade, especially talking about Mars, trining that moon, that blade that cuts through the kind of gunk that we're surrounded with and the hopelessness and really is a guide in a way. So keep that clear, pay attention. Another lovely ace for this moon, Ace of Pentacles. A lot of lovely things being planted right now. Like I said, it does feel like we're kind of stalled. It almost feels like, in a way, we're in the moment where, we've planted the things and they haven't quite reached the surface, and you're like, did it work? And yeah, it did work. We're just waiting for them to come to fruition. And you can also continue to plant seeds from that new moon. You can continue to start new things and find new things. Don't take the start and release thing literally with the moons. Some of us are meant to release on new moons and to plant on full moons. Also, releasing clears the way for things. So you can release during a full moon and plant something immediately after. It's just kind of a guide. So I'm trying to say. But yeah, plant some more seeds, clear your garden, find little passionate things to anchor you at this time. The nice thing about the South Node being in Virgo is there's kind of like a cozy craft vibe. There's kind of this moment of like little tiny things that we get to kind of hold on to. I will say this card is slashed at the bottom, and we have a bit more time, and so I want to show them to you. Wheel of Fortune and the Five of Pentacles. I do think there is some grief in this release. I think on the other side, Ten of Pentacles, we're going to find some really lovely gifts once we have cleared away the sorrow and the pain, but there is going to be a sadness to this moon because the South Node does make us look at things that are past. And also, Pluto is being pulled in by the ruler by sextile. And Neptune is adding a depth and a color to all of this that is quite magical, but also quite poignant. Um, and with our Wheel of Fortune, anything can happen. And I love that we have like 10 and a 5, bunch of ones. We've got everything. We have the beginning, the middle, and the end. So there's a full story here in this full moon in Capricorn. I encourage you to release and to sit in whatever this moon brings, speaking to myself as well. I don't always like to sit in it. But know that there are some really beautiful things. There's just also a requirement to kind of deal with the Eight of Swords and to sit in that Five of Pentacles. Um, and then once we clear it, we get to go have Ten of Pentacles moments and to act on our Knight of Swords energy and to take our pain and to, this is very Chiron loosely squaring this moment to take our pain and to activate it to create change. We can't heal everything, but we can take what we know of suffering and mitigate it for others. Anyways, my loves, that is my message for you. Blessed full moon in Capricorn, and I will see you in a different space and time.